Welcome to the Glitch podcast. I'm Monica Vanderpool. I'm going to be your host. And today I am sitting here with my beautiful mother, Judy Radford. And we're going to share with you today a little bit about her journey through my dad passed away. It'll be 4 years in April. And we just kind of want to talk and unpack how that has, affected my mom, how she's navigated through a lot of things. And let's get started. So a little bit of a background is that we are a family of four. It's myself and my brother, Michael John. He's 18 months older than I am. My mom and dad, high school sweethearts. And my mom was told that she couldn't have children. So they, from a small town in Virginia, decided they were going to join the military together. And that would kind of get them out of, this small farmland or farm life that they lived. So they joined the military and, fast forward, my mom had my brother and she had me. So after I was born in 1977, she decided to get out of the military and she got into teaching, which I believe is her true passion. And basically supported dad in his military career. And why don't we start from there, Mom? How was it navigating as a military wife with two kids, traveling, but also working on your career as an educator?
Well, I guess when I turned the pages back to that time, it was exciting because we moved to Germany the first time, and that's when we had you. And after that, I decided to get out of the military, and I had been in 3 years and 3 months. So that gave me the opportunity to have all of my military benefits. And I was teaching before we joined the military. So I just went back into the field.
So growing up in a small town, and when they told you and Dad you're going to be stationed in Germany, was that how was that? Because Germany compared to, Brunswick County, Virginia, that's two ends of the spectrum.
I was very excited. It became not so exciting when they told me I couldn't bring my son with me.
That's right, yeah.
And I was like, wow, what do you mean? We're going to Germany and I'm bringing my son with me? And they told me that, that was because I would have to go over, get settled, blah, 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 and have everything in place, and then bring him. Well, that didn't sit well with me. That's not my personality. So we pushed this. We pushed this against the whoever tells you you're going where. And I told them, my son will go with me. And they told me, well, Ms. Radford, is going to be challenges. And I said, I don't care. I will meet those challenges of a new place, but I'll do it with my husband and my son.
And you were not pregnant with me at this time?
No.
Okay.
So we went to Germany, and sure enough, it was a challenge trying to find a place to live. We got our MOS assigned to us and where we would be stationed. I was going to be downtown working in Frankfurt in a high security below a bank. And your dad was assigned to Eschborn, which was outside of Hearst, where we finally found a place to live at Niederhörstadt Strasse. Your dad's, in his company, there was a young man that his wife babysat. So she became our sitter. Maybe she sat with y'all the whole time we were there. And I found out after about a couple of months that this high security place that I was in downtown was too stressful for me, because we would be the first online if war broke out. And I just didn't want to be in that situation. So they reassigned me, and I got an assignment about, I guess, a couple of miles from your dad. And I worked for a company commander because he found out I was an English major. And life went on. your dad had so many deployments. Cause he was an engineer and, I pretty much was stable in where I was working. So that was comforting for me. And then I had my babysitter and she and I became good friends and, life was good.
I remember in high school, at this point, Michael John had graduated from high school and he was in college. Dad he got stationed back in Hawaii, but he went without us. So Mom and I became pretty much roommates. And we sat down one day and we counted how many times we had packed up and moved. And it was 34 times.
At that time.
At that time, it was 34 times.
But when he retired, it was a total of 47 times.
Yeah.
We had packed up, gone from point A to point B.
Right.
So moving is nothing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get rid of stuff because when you moved, you couldn't take so much poundage with you. So I like cleaning out, period.
Yeah.
Because that's the norm for me, right? But going back to what you said, it never was even though you were in Frankfurt, Germany, it was just your home.
Right.
Because you had your military family, your daddy was on a fast pitch softball team, and we supported that and traveled all over. He became a member of the all-arm football team, and it was just exciting. Everything was exciting.
And we built a family.
Oh yeah,
we built a family
with the pigs and and we still get together today every summer, and they still invite me to come, and I go.
And I remember growing up, obviously when you're a kid, you get settled and you meet all these friends, and all of a sudden, Mom and Dad say, okay, it's time to move again, which as a kid we did not like. But now as an adult looking back, that was the best thing that could happen to us. Yeah. Because it forces you to become diversified, and it's easy for us to have conversations with people that we don't know. And it also brought my brother and I, even though we fought like cats and dogs, it brought my brother and I so much closer, because that became our, my playmate was my brother. When we moved to
he was just stable.
Yeah, he was. So, all right, so after 23 years, Dad retired from the military.
23 and a half.
23 and a half years, Dad retired from the military, moved back to Virginia, and my dad started a new career with a company called First Fleet. Yep. Transportation company. And Mom's still teaching. Mom basically taught for how many years were you in the?
Well, I stopped teaching. I taught just a little bit when I came back to Virginia, but then I started going into the upper levels of management. I became the secondary ESL liaison for Chesterfield County Public Schools. And then I moved to the state, and I became the state Title III coordinator for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that's kind of where I ended my career. Dad started working for First Fleet as a regional manager, which at that time, First Fleet was not on the East Coast at all. So he asked me when they called him, should he take this job? And I told him, I said, honey, that you've got to decide that. And he says, well, Mom, it's going to be a lot of traveling and setting up. And I said, well, that's basically what we've done all your life in the military. So it's just another, avenue. So he took the job, and he built First Fleet sites from Maine all the way to Florida. Put them on the East Coast, made them big money, and then he went on I think it was air to go shoot birds. They would go on those bird trips in the summer. And he came back from that trip, and I remember he had this horrendous wheezing and coughing, and I said, Michael, I think you've got pneumonia. He said, you think so? And I said, well, you know what? I think you need to go to this little clinic across the road and just let them check you out. Maybe you've got whatever you've got, maybe they can give you something for it. Chesterfield imaging. Yeah. So anyway, he went over there, and I don't know what they did, but they sent him to have a chest x-ray. And he came on back home, they gave him some medicine. And he says, well, Mom, I guess I'll hear from that, you know. They wanted me to have a chest x-ray to make sure that I didn't have pneumonia or whatever. So anyway, he was out on the road traveling, and one day they called me from the clinic and they said, Ms. Radford, we have the results of your husband's x-ray and you need to come and get it right away. I said, okay. So I, drove over there. I came home and it was a sealed envelope, and I sat down at the table and I read this, and it said, early signs of idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis in the right something of his lung. I was like, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. What the devil is that?
Right. So we Googled.
So I'm like, okay,
We Googled.
we Google a lot.
Yeah.
So I Googled it and I was stunned. It's like it was a debilitative lung disease that people that had this lived 3 to 5 years.
And I remember 2 years.
So I took the letter and I sent it to you and Michael John. And I said, y'all need to sit down and read this. And we talked. So anyway, your dad came in from his work, I don't know, and I told him, I said, Michael, you got the results of your x-ray. And he says, well, did I have pneumonia? And I said, well, not really. And I told him what he had, and he said, well, Mom, what is that? And I said, well, it's a not so good sign of something with your lung. And he says, well, what can I do? And I said, nothing, honey. I said, but they want you to go see a pulmonary doctor. So I've already got that lined up for you. And that's where the journey started. I even took him to Denver, Colorado to confirm that he had idea.
Now this wasn't it 2018?
Yes, 18.
It was 2018 when you found this news out. You were still with the state. You're still at the state.
May 2018.
And Dad was still with First Fleet at this time.
And we went to Denver. It was confirmed that he had IPF.
And Denver has a Rose Medical Center is a pulmonary hospital.
Yes,
that specializes
in Jewish, one of the best in the nation.
In pulmonary fibrosis. And Dad was to go there for, wasn't it a 2-week period? And they would run all of these tests to try and figure out how he contracted it, when he contracted it, and kind of give you a projection on your lifespan, right? Okay.
And they found out that they tracked it back to his military career. The gas chambers, they did a lot of as engineers, they did a lot of reconstruction with places out there that had the birds and the bird stuff, and that was confirmed what caused it. And that's what was on
burn pits.
And that's what was on his death certificate too. Unfortunately, while we were there, he coded. We were blessed that he came around. He had kind of rehab from that. You came out, and I think we stayed a couple of weeks, and we got him strong enough to bring him back.
He broke, when they coded and they had to do CPR on him, he broke 8 ribs. Which someone who's got a lung disease, breaking 8 ribs is just horrendous. Every time he would breathe, every time he would cough, every time he would laugh, it was just so much, he endured so much pain. And even just being in Colorado with the elevation made it hard enough for him to breathe. So getting him back home was just,
with his oxygen.
It was a lot, and while we were in Denver, I remember, my employees at the time, they rallied and got my dad because, okay, really quick, Mom and Dad sold their house in Virginia, and their plans was they were going to retire in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So the plan was that mom was gonna retire, dad was gonna retire, they were gonna retire in Myrtle Beach. They had a bucket list of all these things that they wanted to do together to just enjoy that retired life as couples do. So fast forward, dad, has this episode in Denver, and we basically turned part of my house into a little apartment for my mom and dad, because all of dad's doctors were here in Richmond, Virginia. We got a hospital bed for him, we got oxygen for him, we got everything he needed to make him comfortable here in Richmond. And so we came back from Denver, and I feel like that's when like the journey really began.
And that's when I decided, I had always said I was gonna work until I'm 70. And I was, I think, 66 at the time. 67, I don't know.
Well, 2018, so you would have been 68.
Yeah, but it was May, so I would have been 67 going on 68.
Right.
So I went into work one day and I just went into my director and I told her the situation. I said, I need to retire to take care of my husband. And she says, well, Judy, when is this gonna happen? I said, this is my 2-week notice. I said, I'm on my way to HR right now. So I went to HR, my best friend Becky was in charge of it. And I told her the situation and she said, okay, Judy, she says, I'm gonna drop everything and work on your paperwork right now. And in 2 weeks, I was gone. I'd finished my career. And my journey began taking care of him.
And that was really your full-time job.
That was a full-time job.
I mean, it was doctor's appointments every single week. And
his oxygen and trying to keep him moving and hauling him around. I remember at the end, I had his oxygen was so, I mean, his capacity in his lung was so minimal that they gave me this thing to put in the back of my car to carry 6 of those canisters of oxygen, because I couldn't go but maybe 30 minutes and then I'd have to stop and change it out. But I wanted him to get out. I wanted him to go in a restaurant and eat. Monaca was building a house during this time. Every day I made sure he went down and stay and watch him and build the house, and he became best friends with the builders. And I did everything to give him the best life up into the end. And he was a happy man. He ate and
Dad loved eating.
Yeah.
And with this disease, it was scarring of the lungs. So it's not something that you get better from, but you can kind of prolong your life by doing things. He took a medicine every day. Many pills, but there was one particular medicine that was supposed to slow down the scarring. And so you couldn't recover from it, but you could kind of, elongate your lifespan. And really quick, he was a transplant. He was on the transplant list. He decided to go through all the testing to get a lung transplant. And he got the phone call that at first he was number 2 on the list. And then a couple weeks after that, he found out he was number 1 on the list. And then COVID hit. And when COVID first hit the States, the hospital that my dad went to, they shut down the transplant list. And during that short period of time, he came down with pneumonia. It was actually the same time that we took this picture. This was 2 weeks before he passed away. But he came down with pneumonia and couldn't kick it. And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we ended up calling 911. And they came, got Dad, and that was the last time I saw Dad.
And we thought we were gonna just juice him up, like they usually would, and bring him back home. And a little caveat to that is he had one more episode, and I had to take him to Inova in Fredericksburg, and COVID hit while I was there. And I went and I was with him on a Saturday, and we got the letter that they were closing down the hospital and I had to leave. couldn't go back in the hospital. So he said, Mom, you don't need to stay here. You just go home and let them do what they're gonna do, and I'll let you know when to come get me. And they kept calling me during the week, the doctors, giving me an update and everything on him. And I went and I got him, I think the following Saturday, I went and got him and brought him home. And what he didn't tell us was his lungs were kind of like a bicycle wheel, I guess you could say, or a tire. And the lung capacity was just getting lower. It was getting flat. Now I know that. Then I didn't realize it. More so in his right and left lung. One was only functioning at like 6%, and I think the other, I don't know, 30 or whatever at the end. But what he didn't tell us was he probably didn't have more than 2 to 3 months to live. He never told us.
No.
So he came home and he kept being Mike, and he ate good, and he would be up every afternoon when Monica came home so they could talk about the day. And 1 month, he left, and 3 days later he was dead.
So this was 2 years after Dad retired. And I guess 3 years after you retired, because didn't Dad retire about a year after you did?
He did. I wanted him to retire because he hadn't really told his people he was sick.
No.
And he was working from home, and he was struggling. And I said, Michael, you need to retire. He says, I promised him I would stay until May. And he did. But he finally had to tell them at the very end, and they told him, they always called him Sergeant Major. They said, Sergeant Major, we knew something was going on. But we didn't know what.
And even after he retired, I remember going down to visit, and we'd be like, "Where's Dad? Where's Dad?" And you'd hear him in the back room on the phone. Even though he was retired, he was still talking to all these people.
Ray Wright, he chose Ray Wright to replace him, and he was kind of his mentor. So he would 24/7. Because that's what you do when you're a regional manager. Your dad would,
he would call and say, how's everything going? And they would still get tips from him. So, all right, so April of 2020, that was when Dad passed. So it's been, I did not realize it's almost 4 years.
April 16th, it'll be 4 years.
Yeah, this April it'll be 4 years.
And he's married. He's buried at the Amelia Veteran Cemetery, which is very close. We changed that at the end because we're going to be buried in Brunswick County with my family, and Monica and Michael John and myself too wanted him to be closer so we could go visit him. Saturday would have been our 51st anniversary. So I celebrated that, and
that's married. You were together since 8th grade, so
we were married 47 and 5 years. So that was what, 47, 51? Yeah, 51 years. No, we were married 47. He's been dead 51, and then you add the 5 more years. That would be 56. Your father and I started liking each other when I was either 13 or 14 years old. And I was married to him for 47 years after I graduated from college.
That's a long time.
It's my life. I mean, we grew up together. I probably shouldn't say this, but we went through puberty together. We went through everything. We just grew up together.
So, all right, so now let's talk about the past almost 4 years. Like, how have you navigated through losing your person, basically?
Well, I would say the first 2 years I lost myself.
Yeah.
Cuckoo.
Well, why do you think you lost yourself? Or better yet, answer this, what were you doing? Like, what were you doing, that made you think that you were losing yourself?
I was drinking a lot.
Yeah.
I was staying out a lot. Traveling, cruising, doing everything I could to escape. I mean, look at that picture. I was so tired. So I started just being somebody else. And then I started calming down. And I was losing even more weight. And then I got into learning to love myself.
Mhm.
And I started going to I had a lot of work done on my body, on my face. And I learned to look in the mirror and say, I love me,
Mhm.
and everything's going to be okay. So I found me a church.
Mhm.
That saved me. I got into the Chesson Landings Women's Group, started working with them. I found a couple of older friends in the neighborhood, and we did things together. And I guess I just started slowing down. And this year, my focus is really on myself and my family
Mhm.
and my grandchildren.
Mhm.
I have nothing planned this year. I do dance 2 or 3 times a week. I love to dance. I don't give that up because I look at that as my exercise.
Mhm.
And they tell you, a dancer will live longer because you keep your body
Mhm.
together.
If you don't use it, you don't lose it.
That's right. So I like doing that.
Now, one thing I know is that, like, you've always taken care of yourself. You know, mom was that person who, if we were going to the gas station or going to the grocery store, she always had lipstick on. Like, you always took care of yourself. And I know that after dad passed, that's one thing that you did not lose, is you were very, you just always presented yourself and always took care of yourself, took care of your face. Minus the alcohol, like, we'll be honest. You know, you did have gastric bypass surgery. That
I
was.
lost 125 pounds.
Yeah. So with that, as many of you know, you're supposed to have a certain diet. You're supposed to not drink as much alcohol, but that was one thing that you were doing. You were drinking.
That was my
Doing more drinking than eating.
that was my go-to.
That was your go-to.
That I could
You just
could
escape.
escape everything.
What about your relationship with, like, Michael John and I, with my brother and myself?
Well, Michael John understood me more than you did. I think Monica was sitting back and saying, oh my God, who is this woman? She wasn't like this when Dad was living, and now she's crazy. What is going? And we became detached from each other. She was angry. I was happy. And I finally got to the point that it really bothered me that we didn't have our relationship had slipped away. But my son kept me sane. He kept telling me, give it time, Mom, just give it time. I'm like, okie dokie, but in the meantime, I'm gonna keep on being me. And that's what I did. But then I woke up and I just realized, wow, I gotta change here.
Mhm.
So, I'm not saying that I still don't enjoy. I do have my cocktails in the afternoon, probably because every day of my life with my husband at 5 o'clock,
Mhm.
we had a drink together.
Yeah, he liked to have a little drink.
A drink, and that was our time to talk about the day and
And some cheese and crackers.
cheese and
nuts.
crackers and all of that. So, even now, I don't drink at all until it's around 5 o'clock. As soon as 5 o'clock comes around, I'm like, sometimes I say, well, now, Judy, you don't have to. And then I say, this is my time with Michael.
So there's a little comfort in that.
Oh, yeah. But I try to keep it a minimum to 2 drinks a night now. And sometimes I only drink one.
Mhm.
I've come over to babysit my grandchildren. While Monica's been away on a trip, I don't drink anything.
Yeah.
So, I know I am in control of where I am right now with that. And I'm more focused on right now my body, really my face,
Mhm.
I like keeping my face fresh. My mother was like that. And I'm enjoying, Monica and I have grown together again.
Mhm. Now, do you think, so Dad and I were extremely close.
Oh, yeah.
And do you think that there was maybe a period of time after he passed away that you correlated that relationship with me and Dad, and like maybe was there like a little bit of resentment there?
That he was so close to you.
That I had that relationship with Dad?
I often had told him at times, I wish you would treat me like you treat your daughter.
Mhm.
I wish you talk to me the way you talk to your daughter. Because everything was not hunky-dory during those years.
Right.
We had a lot of hills and valleys, but we stayed afloat.
Mhm.
I think communication was a big part of that because he was gone so much.
Mhm.
And I kept moving on with the children and myself and but that is what it is.
Mhm. Because I remember it was maybe a week or so after Dad passed away that, do you remember you getting really upset with me? And you ended up leaving in the middle of the night.
Oh, I ran away.
You ran away. We can laugh about it now.
It was pouring down raining, and Michael, John, and Jason, I think, had been staying a while after your daddy died. He would come and stay on weekends and whatever, which it was really hard staying in that room, in that bed, and at nighttime, and you cut the lights off and you roll over and he's not there.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
So anyway, I don't know what happened that night. And it was pouring down rain, and I woke up, I don't know what time it was, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. And I got my suitcase and put some clothes in it, whatever. And I went out and it was pouring down raining. I was like, oh my gracious. So I woke Jason up, Michael's husband. I said, Jason, he said, what, Miss Radford? I said, help me get the stuff out of the car. To the car, and he's, what are you doing, Miss Radford? I says, I'm running away. He says, Miss Radford, come on. I said, you're gonna either put the stuff in the car or I'm gonna put it in the car. And you don't tell anybody anything. So he helped me get the stuff in the car, pouring down rain. I think I got to North Carolina and I was like, man, I think I need to stop. And that's when it was COVID. And a lot of places, they were full, they weren't taking, and I stopped this one little place. I believe it was a Marriott. I went in. He said, Ms. Radford, we've got one room. I said, I'll take it. I didn't even go back to the car. I went upstairs, I laid on the bed, and I went to sleep. I slept for about 3 hours. I got up and got back in the car.
And I remember you called me crying.
because I
So
was.
the day before, she was angry with me, and she, like, I think I think I was just the object that you need to get mad at something. And, cause I remember you were just very angry with me, but then the next morning, it was mid-morning, I don't know, maybe around 9:30,
I was
10.
at that barbecue place that I
Yeah.
always stop.
And she called me and she was like, Monica, I need you.
Mm.
So I called my brother, I said, Michael John, I'm coming to pick you up, we gotta go get mom. And we drove down to Myrtle Beach.
Well, I was running away, but I was running away to Myrtle Beach where we lived.
Right.
So I was going home, that's what I was doing.
Yeah,
I just I couldn't stay in that room anymore.
yeah.
So they came down there and we talked and I said, well, while you're here, we need to start cleaning up this place and getting all your stuff, dad's stuff out.
That's right.
get
You
it
stayed,
back.
I guess, about a week and went
Yeah.
through the entire.
Yeah, and I was able to help them clean every room except when they got to his office.
I had to do that.
And I was like, can't do that. Y'all are gonna have to figure that out. If you need me, call me. And Michael, John, and Monica packed that up. But one thing funny, when we were cleaning out everything, Michael was always kind of a pack rat about his clothes. So anyway, I'm the type that if I don't wear it the whole year before and I start changing my clothes out to the next season, I look really hard at what I want to keep and the other goes. So I tried to teach him that. Well, when it got time for him to clean, he would always say, Mom, why don't you go out shopping? I'm gonna stay here and do my stuff. I thought, well, that's great. Or he'd send me out on the Big M cruise or something. Go, what is it?
The casino
The
cruise.
casino cruise. Won't you do that today? You like doing that. Cause he got sick on the boat. So he went one time and he didn't go anymore. So I would go and not think anything about it, and I'd come back and see some bags and stuff. I was like, boy, that's great, Michael, and whatever. So anyway, I was cleaning my room out. And I thought, well, we've got everything done, we've gotten, some of his stuff from his dresser and whatever. And I looked around, I thought, well, maybe I need to look under the bed. And I looked under the bed and he had these long
The Tupperware bins.
Tupperware beds, and I pulled them out, and there were all his clothes.
Yeah.
I thought he had kept all the stuff. And I just sat there and cried.
Yeah. Well, now I know going through his stuff, Michael John and I definitely enjoyed seeing all that. And we ended up taking a lot of his shirts and creating blankets that we still use to this day.
Yeah.
All right, so how can I ask this? From the moment Dad passed till now, how has your relationship, and we can both talk about this, with God? Like where were you and God during this whole thing?
Oh gosh. I mean, if it hadn't been for God, I probably would have cracked up. But I wasn't as close to God as I needed to be. I would listen to my churches. I had churches in Myrtle Beach. was going to the chapel here, and I was listening to everything online, but I was just still missing something. And I would go, my sister, my brother-in-law died within 13 days of each other last March. And I would have to go down and help my niece clean out the house and whatever. And we've kind of named that place the farm. And she and I go down once every month and we stay at least 3 to 4 days. And we're at the point now where we can really go and enjoy being there because we've cleaned the house out. We've, got everything in order. Well, anyway, on the way to the farm, I always pass this little Methodist church. Well, I was Episcopal when Mike and I were married together. Didn't really like it because it wasn't where I was. But that's where we went to church, me more than him. Okay. So anyway, I kept thinking about this church. And just one morning I woke up and I called you and I said, Monica, I said, I think I'm going to go to this little church tomorrow. And you said, oh, I know the pastor, Patrick. We go to the gym together. I said, oh, really? She said, yeah. So when you go in, introduce yourself to him and tell him who you are. So the next morning, Sunday morning, I got up and went to church, and I went in, and it was like God met me at the door. The people were there. They were so inviting, so caring. And then I went and I met Patrick and I told him who I was. He hugged me. He thanked me for coming to the church. And when I sat there that day and I went through the service, I was like, I'm home again.
You needed that.
Yeah. So I'm very involved. I help pack lunches once a month for the homeless. We pack about 100 lunches. Matter of fact, I hadn't been able to go for a couple of months. I wasn't here, and I went Thursday before I went to the farm. And I'm a real stickler when it gets in the assembly line. Because the other people a little bit older than I am, and they want to jack. Well, I kind of keep them in order, right?
That's the teacher in you.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, we finished, and they said, "Oh my God, we beat our time today. We did it in 38 minutes, 100 lunches." And Jack, one of the older men that works with me in the line, he said, that's because Ms. Radford's back in here and she kept us moving. So one woman spoke up and says, do you think we need to move it to 200 lunches? And I said, well, maybe not 200. I said, well, let's hit 150 and see how we do with it, because we donate everything, and the church donates and whatever. And so that's what I do. And I'm on a committee now. We're going to have our first spring fling that we haven't had since COVID. And a matter of fact, I have a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock, and we're putting that together. And I'm excited about that. I go out, we have a equestrian farm where we send so many people a month to go there that are addicts. And they use the horses for rehab and whatever. And when they graduate, we go out to the farm and we see them graduate and we hear their testimonials. And then afterwards, we get to sit and talk with them.
Well, that's neat.
Yeah, and that just, it's just, we eat lunch together.
Yeah.
And that's just a real good feeling that's another place that, we help somebody. And the testimonials were just, oh my gracious.
So it sounds like you're very involved.
Oh yes, oh yes. And I have my little upper room and my Bible, and that's the first thing I do when I get out of bed every morning. And at nighttime, I have a long prayer, and I pray all during the day when I need it, and so that is come back into my life. So with that, I think that has calm me down for this year, and I'm on a different pathway of finding myself as God wants me to be.
Right. Because you obviously still have a purpose to be here.
Yes.
And I feel like you're kind of settling into what your purpose is now, navigating life without dabbing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't, I'll never forget him. I'll never stop loving him. But the last thing he told me was, Judy, you've got a lot of life left in you. He
Mhm.
said, live it to the fullest, and I'll see you on the other side. So that's what I'm doing.
I still can't believe it's been almost 4 years.
So crazy, right?
I know, yes. All right, do you have anything else that you want to share? Do you have any questions? Do you have any advice for somebody who, not just a spouse, but, you know, a child, someone who's lost a loved one?
Yeah, I think, be ready to maybe go down a path that you're not aware you're gonna go down. But don't get off of it too far. Find a purpose after you've gone and done your thing, and keep God in your life. Find a place to go and be with God.
Yeah.
And find friends, good friends. And if somebody comes along your way that would like to take you out to eat, or just come and chat or whatever, that's okay. That's okay. That doesn't mean that you don't love the love of your life, but it's nice to have somebody, to have a male friend sometime, along with your females. And you don't look for it. Don't go looking for it. I tried that. Don't do that. And that didn't last long. That was a part of that getaway thing too. But now, when you least expect it, somebody comes along.